The meeting will be recorded and posted on our Facebook page. The link is in the chat box. Pawan, the slides, please. The audience can put in their questions in the chat box, typing in the chat box. So let me welcome you all to the 66th edition. One of our super senior is there with us to share his knowledge. Next slide, please. Let me hand over the session to Professor Dr. Tufan Pati sir from Cuttack. He is so well known, and I think, sir, I'll save time by skipping your CV, and please skip mine and Amrit too.
Thank you, Alim. So we'll be right through the meeting. And Rohit, please keep on sharing. I welcome Dr. Amrit Patjoshi and Dr. Alim Siddiqui as moderators of this meeting. And they don't need any introduction because they're quite vibrant and well known. Welcome, Alim and Amrit. Next slide, please. And we have got chairpersons, Dr. Tanmeni Das from Cuttack. She's a senior consultant psychiatrist. And she's consultant in Mental Health Institute, SC Medical College, Cuttack, the premier institute of Odisha. She is the convener of Women Mental Health Specialty Section of Indian Psychiatric Society. She is CME chairperson of Indian Psychiatric Society Eastern Zonal Branch, and she is the past president of IPS Odisha State Branch. Welcome, Tanmayini. And next slide, please. We have with us Professor Dr. Ravis BN of Mysore. He is professor and HOD of Psychiatry of Mysore Medical College and Research Institute, Mysore. He was former director of the Harvard Institute of Mental Health Neurosciences, Harvard. The first Asian member of European Violence in Psychiatry Research Group, AVPRG. Is the youngest and most qualified director of medical institution, Government of Karnataka. Only qualified forensic and legal psychiatrist in India. Service Award by State Government Employees Association in 2018. Past president of IPS Karnataka chapter 2002-2016. Is ex-member of Karnataka State Mental Health Authority and Karnataka State Mental Health Task Force. Former nodal officer of North Karnataka 12 districts and National Mental Health Program. He is chairman of Legal Cell Indian Psychiatric Society Karnataka chapter from 2016 till date, and Indian Psychiatric Society South Zone. He is the member of academic subcommittee of All India Institute of Speech and Hearing, Mysore. He is a member of International Forum of Teachers, UNESCO Bioethics, and chairman of Legal Committee of National Indian Psychiatric Society 2019 till continuing now. And he is a member of Juvenile Justice Inspection Committee of Mysore. Welcome, Dr. Ravis. Welcome, Dr. Tanmayini. And I don't want to come in between the speaker and chairpersons. I hand over the further proceedings to the chairpersons. Please take over. Dr. Ravis and Dr. Tanmayini Das, please take.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening.
Good evening, Dr. Tanmayini. Please go ahead.
A very good evening, everybody. And I am thankful to the organizing persons, Dr. Tufan Pati, Dr. Amrit Patjoshi, and Dr. Alim Siddiqui for this opportunity to chair in this session. It's such an interesting topic and with such a distinguished speaker. And existential therapy, like as the word suggests, it deals with the existence of human beings. And it is primarily based on the philosophy that primarily focuses on the inevitable conditions that human beings face, like death, responsibilities, and freedom and purpose. Major contribution to this are by Rolome and Yalom. And many of our conditions, disorders, these are created by the existential vacuum, in which there is people lose meaning to their life, and usually associated with conditions like anhedonia, apathy, worthlessness, guilty feeling. And this existential therapy that uses the method of confrontations, like they encourages a paradoxical thinking, like if somebody is sweating and they're afraid of why I am sweating so much, that they are confronted with the thought that they should think that, yes, let me sweat more, let me sweat more and more, as much as I can. In a way, if they think in a paradoxical way, that they start not reacting to this situation. So, like this therapy, usually a lot of cognitive reframing is there. So only it could be used in the educated group and those who are aware of the responsibilities and the confrontations. So we have a very distinguished speaker on this topic, and my co-chairperson, Dr. Ravis, will be introducing him. Over to Dr. Ravis.
A very good evening to one and all. I would like to place my sincere thanks to one of the gentlemen of Indian Psychiatric Society, Dr. Tufan Patti, and his two energetic mascots, Halim Bhai and Amrit Pat Joshi, who are definitely potential future leaders of Indian Psychiatric Society. I think the popularity of this Thursday meetings, you can see nearly 160 participants at this hour. And today is the 66th. I think I joined our senior Dr. Suresh Kumar from New Zealand at 3:30 a.m. He's so eager to listen to this program. I think this is a great contribution to Indian Psychiatric Society. Today we have a very prolific speaker, Dr. Balan Vijay Kumar, who is senior to our organizers. And of course, he was my teacher in KMC Manipal. So Dr. Balan Vijay Kumar currently is director of Al-Sur Specialist Clinic at Sharjah, UAE. He is ex-faculty of not only KMC Manipal, but even in CMC Vellore. His areas of interest is psychopharmacology and psychotherapy. He has given a lot of training, more than 100 sessions in past 15 years to both GPs and psychiatrists. He has been involved in a lot of public awareness programs about psychiatry, more than 100 radio shows in UAE and India. He has more than 25 publications in local news papers. He is winner of several Toastmaster public speaking contests. So he holds distinguished Toastmaster award from Toastmasters International. Not only that, he is quite techno savvy. He has database programming using Microsoft Access and Visual Basics. So we are all very eager to listen to Dr. Balan Vijay Kumar. Over to you, sir.
Good evening, everyone. I'll just start my screen share. Is my screen visible?
Yes, sir, it is.
So we start with a very interesting topic, existential therapy. Let's say, I think ideally, as titled here, we should call it useful lessons from existential therapy. What I'll be doing, I'll be giving a small introduction of what existentialism is, and to see how we can use those principles in therapy as I use it. I checked the word musings on the dictionary and found that it means reflection. I have therefore used this case as this is a real case that I've handled, as a reflection of what existential therapy means to me. So it's a very personal thing. It's the musings that I have after working in this field for now 35 years. So let me take the first step. So as usual, we need to start with a little bit of philosophy, because this is a topic heavily related to philosophy. And I'll keep it as simple as possible. Now, no discussion of philosophy starts without Mr. Plato, who lived in Greece about 2,400 years back. And he started what stood the test of time for 2,300 years, something called as essentialism. Now, I'll just try to show you what it is. Now, if you can see this, this is a knife. Now, what makes this a knife? Let's say if you're here, you would see that this handle of this knife is made of plastic. Is that handle that makes it a knife? You think further, you realize that it's the blade, this blade that makes it a knife. If it didn't have a blade, it would not be a knife. So the blade is the essential quality of the knife. Now let's take a cat or a horse. A zoologist can exactly define what makes a horse, the essential elements. And it is these essential elements that define existence. This is according to Plato. Now let's come to human beings. What is essential to us? Who defines it? Dad, mom, culture, your religion. So if you're a very religious person, you would say that, okay, my religion says that this is what it means to be human. So this is me. So you are still an essentialist. You know what the essential qualities of being human are, and that defines your existence. Now, after 2,300 years, over the last 100 years, philosophers have taken a step ahead. It took a long, long time. They defined existentialism, and now they say that existence precedes essence. Now, when it comes to human beings, you exist first, and then you discover your essence. Who you are is not decided when you're born. You start existing, and then you say, look, yeah, this is what I should be like. Let's say you decide I'm going to be a communist or a nationalist or a Democrat or whatever. I'm going to spend my life for science, politics. I want to do social service, or I will paint art. What you want to do. So you first exist, and then you discover your essence. So that is existentialism. So obviously, this brings in the issue of freedom, choice, life, the meaning of life, experience. So it's a huge philosophy. And over the 100 years that it has developed, a lot of philosophers came and gave us a lot of ideas, and put together, this is the theory or the philosophy rather of existentialism. Now, let's move ahead. Here is a small painting that I saw on the internet that defines existentialism very clearly. You choose the mask, you put it on. You chose it. This is what existentialism is. Now, I'll tell you the story of DK. First seen 21 years back when she was 30 years old. Now she's 51, postmenopausal. Indian national from Kerala, MA in English literature, a well-read individual, born, raised in the UAE, now works as an artist. She didn't work in her chosen profession. She changed it. She made a choice. And at the point of first seeing me 21 years back, she was already divorced and had started a new relationship. And the initial diagnosis long back was anxiety disorder. So after every slide, I will give you some insights on therapy based on the information that I've provided you. So she still sees me after 21 years. So I have an intense gratitude to these long-term patients. They taught me therapy. I have several of them. And as you grow older, all of you will have your own share, and you will have a sense of gratitude to them, that they spoke to you, they opened their hearts to you, they told you many things, and that they taught you therapy. Now, how does somebody survive with a therapist for 21 years? Strong connection, strong. This is your skill. This is the skill of the therapist. And you only make that connection if you talk about life, if you talk about meaning of life, if you talk about choices, if you talk about the things that existentialists talk about. That is the secret of connection. And it's a strictly professional relationship. She doesn't know where I live. She doesn't know how many children I have. She doesn't know anything about me. She comes to the clinic. She knows where I practice. She meets me when required. That's it. But the secret is my skill to communicate with her with a sense of responsibility. So this is the foundation of any therapy, more so with existential therapies, because we handle very, very deep stuff. We avoid hurtful interpretations. When they tell you a lot of personal things, you can really get back at them if you're in a foul mood someday. So you have to diligently avoid these hurtful interpretations and maintain that strict professional relationship and maintain that connect. So we are always asking probing questions that help her to think deeper. And this is why she comes to me, because she wants to hear those questions so that she can think about it. She can think deeper, explore deeper. This is her purpose to come to me. So this is the critical skill that I should have as a therapist: probe and ask the right question so that she explores her life. It's not about me supplying my perspective to her. It's about her discovering her perspective. Now, when you do this kind of work, how do you limit the number of sessions? Not possible. It's a long, long task ahead of you. Now, this is the history she is giving to me. She was already divorced when she came and saw me for the first time. Now, how she was before marriage. She belongs to a very wealthy family. Dad is a jeweler, a well-adjusted individual. Yeah, there are a lot of rich people in India and probably richer people here on an average. And if you're a jeweler in Dubai, you can imagine how she must have grown up. Mother is educated. I know her mom because I know this family now for 21 years. Very polished lady, emotionally intelligent. She's religious. Mom is religious, meticulous about her rituals, and DK followed it. DK has a younger sister who studied engineering and took up a job. And it's a stable, close-knit family. Okay, now let's see some therapy aspects related to this bit of information. What was the result of such an upbringing? Now, you can ask yourself this question. Wealthy family, dad is a jeweler, well-adjusted family, no issues, no problems. So now when you consider possibilities, it is an exercise in your imagination. It's not real. You have to imagine, okay, it could be this, it could be that. And don't ever assume your imagination as fact. This is a mistake a lot of therapists do. And especially when we are busy, we imagine something and then we assume that it is a fact. For example, if you imagine, you could say that, she's from a very wealthy family, there is no problem, everything. It's all your imagination. It's very far from the reality. Now, nature is a very creative script writer. It never repeats and it's full of surprises. You have, as experienced psychiatrists, never heard the same history twice. Nature is very creative. So you have to ask and hear your patient's story. And you have to ask what life meant to her at that time, when she was a kid, when she was growing up. What did life mean to her? It's her meaning, not yours. Don't assume. And keep all your theories aside. And what do you need all this information for? To make diagnosis, you need very limited information. To do CBT, you need a little more information, and that was very specific. And what do you want to do? Junk the rest of the information? No, here is where our work starts. If you're doing real therapy, if you want to connect with your patients, talk about deeper things, that rest of the information is extremely important. So how was her life before marriage? I asked her, and she said, I was a good girl. Now that's her definition of what it means to be a good girl. I did all the rituals. Good morning, sir. Namaste. When somebody comes, stand up. Dad says, play the violin. She plays the violin. She's always on time, never misses the bus, does all her homework. Good morning, good evening, goody goody girl. Life was very nice. So her assumption was, if I'm good to people, they'll be good to me. This is what goody goody parents teach goody goody children. Good, be nice. So she was very nice girl, sweet. And she believed that everything will be taken care of. Dad has a lot of money. We are very well off. There is no problem. Money can solve everything. These were unsaid assumptions. And she followed all the rules. And she displayed unprocessed emotion, and she told me that this was the norm. She would laugh, cry, any emotion could be expressed because that's how their family was. They were very close. Everything was out in the open. So this was her life before she got married. Now, life has a habit. It shows you the mirror. And who shows you the mirror in life? The villain. Soon the villain was going to arrive. Let's see some therapy suggestions based on this information. People change with time. Now she's talking about her childhood. She's quite different now. And we are going to explore this process of change as she experienced it and as she reported to us, to me. Now, beware of the implications of a casual personality disorder diagnosis. So this kills therapy. You just rapidly diagnose personality disorder. Now, personality disorder exists. I have no problem with that diagnosis. But a casual personality disorder diagnosis, no, because then it gives you a feeling of fixity. Whereas it's not. Life is quite dynamic for most people, and people change and evolve with time. Now, life as a trap. Now, this is a very, very important concept. You realize, you have become aware, but it's a retrospective phenomenon. Life teaches me a lot. For example, I go through somebody's death or a difficult time. It teaches me a lot. But whatever happens, life has to be lived forward, and you cannot be prepared for the surprises. See, tomorrow I may go blind. Whatever experience I have had in my life will not prepare me for that. Tomorrow something drastic can happen. And so you gain experience backwards, but you have to live forwards. This is the trap of life. Neither she, nor me, nor you, none of you can escape it. And then life puts you in a position where you have multiple options. And then what do you choose? 5 marriage proposals come. Which one do you choose? 5 jobs come. Which one do you choose? 5 options, 10 options, 15 options. Life is full of options. How do you choose? You don't have enough data to take good decisions. Sometimes you have to take a decision because there is no other option. So this is how life is. We have to move ahead. Time moves on despite whatever we wish. These are the realities of life. These are the traps of life. Some more aspects related to therapy at this point. So at any point, I think that I am quite aware of everything, but actually my awareness is quite limited. Look at DK. She was a little fine girl. Everything was fine. She thought she knew and understood the world, but no. As we will see, life taught her a lot after that. Can you help your patient expand this awareness? Can you ask them the right questions when they give you a history? Like somebody who's going through a bad marriage. Can you expand their awareness? Can you ask them the right questions that they think in a wider sense? And knowing fully well that you can't force realization down their throat. Some people, let's say somebody has got a religious belief, and you feel that it is these beliefs that are coming in the way. Are you going to confront that in therapy? You can't. You shouldn't. You can't force realization down their throat on a very, very personal matters. And not everybody is able to go through this process of probing questions, and it is none of your business to break that barrier. You will get a sense that the patient is ready to receive that question. Only then ask it. And people make choices, and it is their choice. Finally, it is their choice. And as a therapist, as you are with them, you can explore, you can help them to broaden their awareness so that they can hopefully make better choices. But it is finally their choice. Now, DK gets married. It's an arranged marriage. Goody girl finds that her husband has been found by her parents. She gets married to an engineer in the UK, a country she has never visited before. Her husband was a very handsome and loving person, and she was deeply in love. She loved this fellow. And then she realized that she's strongly sexually driven. This is information she volunteered. It's a powerful reality for her. They were just in love, and life was full of exciting moments. Mother-in-law lived with them, and she overprotected her son. She micromanaged their life and was overcritical of DK, and gradually this evolved into abuse. Now starts the problem for DK. Goody girl didn't have the devices to handle mother-in-law. She grew up in a stable family, see? So what happened? F shows you the mirror. The villain came, the mother-in-law. Yeah, DK tells me something about her mother-in-law, about all that. You will soon realize that it is her perspective, her feeling. Now, let us say I talk to the mother-in-law. I never did, but I am just imagining. This is my imagination. Let's say I talk to the mother-in-law, and the mother-in-law will give me a very different story. Surely, mother-in-law may say something like, mind you, it's my imagination, that DK was incompetent. She didn't know how to make sambar. She didn't know how to make dosha, whatever. Now, you will get this experience doing marital therapy. All of us do. You listen to one partner, you get carried away, you feel the other one is the villain, till you speak to the other partner and discover that the first person told you something totally different. Totally different perspectives come. Now, this is not distrust. You see, this is another fact of existence. Nobody knows the truth. Nobody. Not me, not you, not them. And everybody has their perspective, and this is a fact of life. And you have to connect with them despite this reality, though knowing that it is totally probably a creation of their own imagination or the way they see life. But as far as they are concerned, it is the reality, and that is the bigger reality, that their experience is real for them. So this is the fact of our existence as therapists, and for them as patients, that this trust is unconditional. Whatever they say, we accept it. Can you help them explore these perspectives further? So this is what you do as an existential therapist. Now, let's see what happened to DK's marital discord. DK's husband was very attached to his mother. So he was never able to confront his mother and protect DK. Marital conflict started building up. The couple took professional help. DK was given assertiveness training in the UK. What happened? She started asserting herself with her husband and mother-in-law. Finally, after 2 years of painful discord, she filed and obtained divorce without the help of her parents in a foreign country that she never knew before. So she became smart, she grew up. That crisis taught her a lot. And she had evolved into a very different individual. Now, all this is happening before she met me, and this is the story she's relating to me. So some therapy suggestions. While this conflict was going on, she experienced an intense sense of absurdity of life, marriage, and relationships. I wonder, and I'm sure all of you have experienced this. Who defines good girl? What's that? What does that mean? What is this nonsense? Who's this good girl? Huh? Good boy, good boy. Parents told you good boy. What does that mean? And what is this nonsense thing called marriage? This is her feeling. She questioned the whole institution of marriage. What is this? What is it? And if you're married and you have been married for some time, I am sure in weaker moments you have thought this. What is this nonsense? Why should I respect these useless people? Now, everybody is imperfect. So you can find something less or less than perfect in them. And so why should you respect them? She respected so many people, but why? What? For what? And what is the use of all the money dad has made? This was a very deep understanding for her. All the money in dad's bank made no difference to me, my suffering. What does respect your elders mean? Are these people worthy of respect? Did mom, dad get me ready for my life? What did they do? Her whole religious system collapsed. And I'm not responsible for that. It is much before I came. What did that getting up, folding your hands, standing in front and doing that ritual, did it make any difference? No. What is this nonsense of my strong sexual drive? Mother-in-law was torturing her, but at night they had great sexual life. What is this nonsense? This is her deep feeling of absolute absurdity of life. Now, let me share some instances where I feel life is absurd. Sometimes I'm in a high rise in Dubai and you see endless traffic jams, thousands of cars. It looks like there are some worms crawling somewhere on the road, hundreds and hundreds of cars, these millions of expats going to work in the morning. What for? The struggle, the cars are just inching forward in that morning traffic. In Dubai, everybody wants to make money for what? This is the absurdity of life. Friends, when you feel that absurdity and all these systems break down, you get a great sense of freedom. This is life. You question and break those barriers. You go through that pain and you will get your freedom. She got her freedom. With that sense of freedom, human beings are capable of great things. She changed her entire system. She managed to get divorced alone in a foreign country. Now, that's not easy because you have to face up to the legal system, find out the system, how it works, meet the lawyers, so on, so forth, paperwork. How inadequate does CBT feel to you at this point? Let's say you go to a psychiatrist and he diagnoses you with adjustment disorder or anxiety disorder or nonsense. It is sometimes very, very superficial if you don't talk to them about deeper things in life. Nobody is interested in the diagnosis. At this point, if somebody starts explaining what cognition is and what behavior is and what CBT is, I will, if I am on the receiving end, I'll walk out from that room because I have very, very important issues on which I need to connect with my doctor as a human being. Therapy can have powerful consequences. See what that assertiveness training did. See, you have to be careful. Now, whether it did good or bad is your choice. You have to decide that. It broke her marriage. Was it for good? Maybe, maybe not. Depends on your point of view. Now, let's see what happened after that. When first seen 6 months back, when I saw her first, she was 6 months into another relationship. So the marriage was over. She came and she was in another relationship. She came back from the UK with newfound freedom and assertiveness. Then what happened? She decided to take up her hobby, painting, as full-time work. Now you see, she had rejected money. She could have gone joined her dad's business and her dad needed help. She didn't do that. Money, rejected. Now she wanted to live like the hippies of the old. She wanted to paint and she took it as full-time work. You see the joke that she rented a flat in Dubai for her studio. No, ever, never, ever, ever would she sell paintings and even cover the rent. Dad was paying the rent. So she rejected work. So that was her development. And then she found a mentor and guide to start her business. Business, I think it was an illusion. It's hardly a business. And she found somebody who was an artist to mentor her. Now this evolved into another relationship, again became fiery, strongly sexual. And mind you, they were not married. So it was quite a mess. Now, let's say this looks like from the frying pan into the fire. So you get a sense of freedom, new choices open up. Then what do? Is at this time that people become vulnerable. So see how things are developing. You get that sense of absurdity, and then you discover your freedom. And once you discover your freedom, you're vulnerable. And that is when people make blunders. We will see this in teenagers, as they grow and they develop their sense of freedom. Suddenly they become vulnerable. That's the time when they find the wrong friends, drugs, they start, they go, a lot of these young kids will tell you, I had an existential crisis. This is what they mean. And it is here that the therapist can play a very critical role. Having a supportive therapist at this time makes a lot of difference, because you connect with them, you talk to them about the various options that they're considering, and tell them about their sense of vulnerability. So there's a lot of work as a therapist that you can do. Now, some more information about the new relationship. Now, this boyfriend, the new boyfriend, kept asking for marriage, but DK kept refusing as she was not sure. She felt that this fellow was not up to the mark in many ways and wanted to improve. She felt that he was crude, unsophisticated chap, and felt that he was loving, very sensual, great artist, good friend. So it's some ambivalent, good, bad, mixed feelings, strong feelings. And then there is this deeply sexual relationship on the side. It was just quite messy. Now, some therapy related suggestions. At this point, compared to what she was as a child, I could see some positives. She was no longer impulsive. She was ambivalent, but she was thinking about it. She didn't jump and, either reject him or get married to him. She was in touch with her feelings. This is something important. A lot of people, get that sense that this fellow is not right, but still get married to him or her. So she was in touch with her feelings. She was thinking deeper. She accepted her ambivalence and waited patiently for the answer to come. So this is very different from that girl, goody girl kind of a scenario. So, she kept discussing aspects of this relationship with me and asking me for guidance. Doc, tell me, what's your opinion? She has asked that question so many times at that stage. So, I pointed out these positives to her that, look, now things are very different with you. You've slowed down things. You're thinking deeply into things. You have to make the right decision that is right for you. At one point, I pondered, should I get this boyfriend involved in the therapy? But she almost sensed my feeling. And she said, without my asking, she commented, he's too crude. I can't bring him here. He will mess up my treatment. So she didn't trust him at all. So what happened next is very interesting. This ex-husband, whom she had abandoned in the UK and come here, came back to the UAE. He got married. The court in the UK had asked this fellow to give her alimony, but this fellow didn't pay any alimony. In fact, he wanted some signatures stating that alimony has been paid. So he came to the UAE for a day to discuss it with DK. Then what happened? She realized that she was still in love with her former husband. The feelings were very strong. They had sex. It was an impulsive moment, and he left the next day. It all happened very quickly. And DK had a worsening of depression after this. This is what happened to DK. A lot of things happened after that. It's a 21-year-old relationship, but I just gave you a slice of the therapy, a slice of her life, to illustrate some of the principles of what existence is, what existential therapy is, how we talk of life, the meaning of life, how the meaning of life changes, how therapy impacts people. So many things were illustrated in that small size slice of therapy. So where are we as psychiatrists? Is psychiatry in a state of limited awareness? Are we like frogs in the well? Are we missing the larger picture? It's so sad to see people present cases and talk about diagnostic information and that they did CBT. It feels sorry sometimes. It's psychiatrists have sometimes become like frogs in the well. They don't look at life, they don't look at the larger picture, they're not aware of the existential facts. They are aware of their own existential problems, but when it comes to the patient, they have a totally different equation. It's very sad. But there are, of course, so many of our colleagues who are so well aware of these things. Now, I don't want to generalize. I just said it in a sense that if somebody has gone that way, please reconsider and come back and start getting aware of life, the meaning of life for our patients, what choices they make, and understand the implications of what existential philosophers tell us. Now, there are many existential philosophers, and I challenge you to go and read about it. I think a good starting point, to be very honest with you, it's very, very complex subject. And you must use YouTube. It's a great resource where many of these philosophers are available, or their work has been wonderfully summarized before you go to original literature. All the original literature is available. Many of them are Germans and French, so you get translations into English. They are very, very complex concepts. So when they're translated, they may sometimes lose their original meaning. Many of these existential philosophers are such deep thinkers, you cannot easily understand them. But yet it is a worthwhile exercise to see the depth of their thinking and to understand it. It's an eye-opener that we as psychiatrists are so superficial. So let me come to the summary. Life challenged her. The mirror was there. She realized the absurdities of her life. She found freedom. That freedom made her vulnerable. She found the givens of her existence. That time passes by. Actions have consequences. And choices have to be made with limited awareness. So you have to be careful. She expanded her awareness and she carefully considered choices. Of course, the therapy went on for a long time, and she still continues to see me, and life goes on. So here is an American author, and you won't read very good things about him. He says, we're all going to die, all of us. What a circus. This alone, this fact alone, that that we are going to die, should make us love each other, but it doesn't. We are terrorized and flattened by trivialities, small things. You see, wars, people fighting for what? We are eaten up by nothing. As you become aware of existential issues, you see what is happening in the world, how absurd it is. And then you ask, where am I going? What am I doing? What is the meaning of life? Over to you, Dr. Tufan.
Now I'll ask the chairpersons to comment, and then moderator to see the chat box and ask questions on behalf of the audience, and then we'll interact. Dr. Abish and
Yes.
Dr.
I think women get the first and the last say. So I really thoroughly enjoyed the presentation of Dr. Balan Vijay Kumar. I mean, he mesmerized. He took us to entirely a different world where, in fact, I was myself going through this self-awareness, forgetting that I'm a psychiatrist myself. It was a wonderful, I can't say a presentation, but a kind of a storytelling. And yes, this existential therapy, even though it started from the European schools. But I think even in India, as most of the questions are coming up, we do have these kind of comprehensive or open look at the life. I mean, we all know that what is the risk factor of death? The life and existence itself. And probably in South, many of you might be knowing about the Ravana Maharshi, okay, the man who knew about himself. So as Dr. Balan sir was mentioning, it's a very, very wide concept. And I just remember the Gestalt therapy where each dots, okay, when it is looked as a whole, then it gives a meaning. So we just can't be superficial. We just can't deduce with few information. So let us see what the questions and discussions go about. Before that, over to Tanmini.
Thank you, Dr. Abhis. In fact, it was a very nice presentation by Dr. Balan Vijay Kumar. Very nicely presented that slice of therapy, what is sage. And by this case presentation, it was so much of interesting and it is very easily understood. Usually I find it really difficult to understand the this therapy part, and but very nicely he explained that existential therapy, like how in that stage one should interfere, and the inevitable things in the life, like how one should confront. And I sometimes I think that this existential therapy will be helpful in our post-COVID crisis, like those who are left alone and they are in the grief, like losing many people. We can use those existential therapy, like death is inevitable, and one should be able to confront it, like man, as we are alone, we have come alone, we'll go alone, and only we need people in this life, like and of course this is similar to that Bhagavad Gita. And anyway, what I think that this therapy is very much useful to us and everybody. Thank you, Dr. Balan. Very nice presentation and very interesting presentation.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you, sir. It was a very lucid narration. I think everyone was hooked, all the 250 participants. Some questions are in the chat box. First question is, what is an existential crisis? What is a midlife crisis? Are both of them the same?
As we become aware of life, as teenagers, it's at that time that your son or daughter will suddenly start finding himself. And that's the first time they experience that, what's the meaning of all this? Dad told me this, mom told me this. Is this teachers told me this? Is this what life is? Should I become a doctor? They're telling me to become a doctor. Why should I become a doctor? So that is the first time that they start questioning their existence. And at each stage of life, I think in the middle of life, the questions, those who have passed that age will know. What do these relationships mean? Why putting so much effort to make so much money to, educate them, manage my family? What is marriage? The questions that come up. That is another crisis. Any stage of life, every stage of life. You call it existential crisis, midlife crisis, adolescent crisis, whatever. But the experience is what I tried to share in this slice of therapy. That we start questioning the meaning of life, the purpose of life, why we are here, what are we doing, what is all this? And we sort of reassess and rebuild ourselves after that crisis.
Thank you, sir. Amrit.
Sir, 3 months back, I saw a very interesting case, sir. Sir, a 3.5-year-old kid who, his mother and father used to work outside. He would always be constantly with his grandparents, sir. And at that time in our state, we lost three, one big IPS officer, one star, and one educationalist, all three big shots. Within a period of 20 days, we lost three people. And a lot of news coverages regarding the three deaths were going on. And suddenly the grandparents were always hooked to the TV. They were always on the mobile. Every news was about them. So suddenly this kid stopped eating, sir. He started telling that at the end, we all are going to die. So why should I eat? Everybody is going to die. The hero died. The educationalist died. The big IPS officer died. Common people are dying any day. What's the use value of life? I am not going to eat anything. And this stage, this 3.5-year-old kid came to us, sir. And it was a little severe and serious. And then he was not amenable to what was being told. So how do we explain such things? Like there's a question in the chat box also. If somebody has lost his parent, how do you explain? Both the parents have died, and then the kid comes to you. How do you explain? In terms of if they have existential crisis.
There is regarding the 3.5-year-old. I would personally be very, very skeptical to make it's not an official diagnosis. See, this is the first thing that we need to understand. Whatever I have discussed till now is not a rejection of what psychiatry is, or a rejection of cognitive behavior therapy or assertiveness training. No, everything has its place. And these are scientifically validated processes and procedures. Rejecting psychiatry, no. My presentation is aimed at widening our understanding, not rejecting the existing understanding. This is very important. So if you get a 3.5-year-old, I think you should go through what is the standard process of assessing a child at that age. Like I said, see, all these existential therapists and philosophers are very, very, very astute and deep thinkers. I don't think we should assume that a child at that age has the cognitive processes to feel like a teenager, or feel like an adult, or think like an adult. But we know that depression can present at that age. And we need to make a proper assessment and a proper diagnosis and start the standard treatment. So this is the point. See, again, when somebody has lost both their parents, let's say, I'm just assuming that there was a COVID scenario and both the parents were lost. Well, that grief, the way we handle it, we support them in whatever way possible. And you should not assume anything. Everybody's experience of grief is different. You have to see what that person is going through. It might be for that person a time when deep questions are being asked. For example, he may be guilty that he was not calling his mother regularly, for example. That kind of existential and that re-questioning of what life means and what he did and what he should do in the future and what lessons have to be learned, and all that can become the content of our discussion. But of course, like I said, you have to make a proper clinical assessment, look for other, ICD-10 diagnostic categories, and do your job on a routine basis. This is just a tool for you to, to widen the scope of your practice, in a sense that you connect better with human beings who come to you for help. So it just deepens your work. It doesn't deny what the psychiatry textbook teaches you.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Sir, you said this. You presented a slice of therapy. So, what does this whole tool look like? How do we start it? How do we wind it up? How long does it last? Because you say that this case.
Yes, Dr. Halim, good question. And your question, like all existentialists, I don't claim to be an existentialist. See, I'm not a qualified philosopher. I don't have a degree in philosophy. Honestly, I don't even have a training in existential psychotherapy. I am a hardcore psychiatrist. Hardcore. Huh? I work in a very busy clinic. We are 3 psychiatrists working full time. We see more than 150 patients a day sometimes. Huh? It's a very, very busy practice. So I need to ask myself, what is this? I have an interest in psychotherapy. I read about existential philosophers. I read about, 2 textbooks, one by Yalom and one by Emmy Van Rosen. These are easily available textbooks. I've read those books, and I've learned a lot from them, and I apply it in my practice as I understood it. If somebody is trained in existential therapy, they may come and they may have their own perspective. This is entirely my musings, because we are all working and we develop our own styles of work, what appeals to us, what makes sense to us. It is completely in that sense. So I need to be very, very honest. I am not a trained existential therapist, but this makes a lot of sense to me, and it has helped me tremendously in my practice, because I think my patients love me because I ask them the right questions and I don't burden them with my nonsense.
So my point is, how do you carry over the patient from one end of therapy to other end? How do you talk? What do you talk to him or her?
You saw, Dr. Halim, how I presented my presentation is how I work in a way that you collect facts. Let's say a patient comes to me and as I ask about his or her life, I understand that, okay, let's say there's a diagnosis of depression officially and antidepressants are going on, but I now know that he and his wife are going through a bitter relationship and quarrel, and maybe she has an extramarital affair. So then I start asking probing questions. One, he may not even be interested to talk to me about this. He may not want to, he may not be even thinking about it. No, I don't force it down his throat, but then it naturally evolves into therapy. I see my task as expanding that person's awareness so that he can take better choices with his marriage. So you see, I gather information like any of us psychiatrists, but then I see how I can get him into a position from where he can make better choices with his life. So I choose my questions in that way. That is how I think I work, and probably that is how most existential therapists do their work.
Okay. Thank you.
Sir, can existential therapy help adolescents with borderline personality traits of impulsivity and unstable relationships, and how to go about it? We see a lot of existential crisis in such people.
Yes. I made a comment which I don't want to make a diagnosis of personality disorder unless I have evidence. And one of the things we are looking for is inflexibility. I wouldn't want a diagnosis to be made with a brief period of observation, though it is highly suspect that it is a borderline personality disorder. I think I would always put a question mark in an adolescent before diagnosing him with borderline personality disorder. Why? Because over time I have seen, and all of us who have been practicing for a long time see that people evolve, people change, and if they get good guidance, they make better choices. They become more self-aware. They start understanding their emotions. Even literature says that emotional intelligence can improve over time if you make the proper interventions. Why make a diagnosis? But of course, you suspect that. It's a reality. It's a clinical reality that you sometimes suspect that. But of course, then you start connecting with these people and then try to guide them. These are children who will have lot of emotional baggage. They have relationships, multiple relations. Typically, they will moving from one mess to the other. They have problems with their parents. They have this typical syndrome that we see of children who have difficulty to adjust. And definitely existential issues come up. It is very important to connect well with these children and start discussing with them and help them make better choices, make them aware of their freedom, what it means, their vulnerabilities. The same things that I discussed in the case come up during that process of helping a child like this or an adolescent like this.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Dr. Amit Banerjee is there. I think he wants to, can we invite him?
I can call him. He, sir, has, I think he
Sir,
might.
sir, Amit Banerjee, sir, please, you unmute and make your contribution, sir. We are waiting.
Oh, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Oh, thanks, Alim. I see your Thursday invites every week. Today, the topic was interesting enough to jump on board. I think existentialism defines life in the best manner possible. And it's the most true of all the philosophies and theories that psychiatrists are exposed to. Yes, there are commonalities with Eastern philosophies. I mean, I just put in 4 truisms that I actually learned in CIP from undergraduate textbook of psychiatry in the 1990s. And they are Yalom's. Basically, Dr. Balan talked about Yalom, and they are the fundamental questions of human life. And what is a truism? A truism is basically something that we have to accept as truth. I mean, there's no proof, but we have to accept that it is true. So those 4 truisms that I thought I'd just share, because I actually share them with my patients. Whenever I'm in difficulty, I throw them at the patient. And then it's, it creates a good discussion, but they're very, very true. These are sort of tussles that if we sort of think about sort of difficulties in our own life, we have faced them at various points in our life, but they help us understand ourselves and the person in front of us. So, when we talk about other psychiatric diagnosis, or whether it can help borderline personality disorder, whether it can help definitely it can help adolescents, but they definitely need, what do they call it? Is it a concept of mind, or the psychological mindedness to understand the concepts? You can't really use existential principles on a 3.5-year-old, but other sort of stresses and strains of life, you can definitely use them. And the last truism about meaning and purpose, or meaning and meaninglessness, is so vital. Like, we're all striving for meaning and purpose in our life, but the universe has only that much meaning or purpose that we create. So if we create a meaning of helping others, being a saint, or, being altruistic, that is our meaning. But if we create a meaning of wanting to be a con man, of whom there are many on this earth, so, that is their meaning. So it's a good way to understand life in general. So, it's a great topic, and good to see Dr. Balan after so many years. I'm sure he must be remembering me vaguely.
Yes.
We sort of shared time in CIP a long time back. And thanks.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
Most welcome.
Thank you, sir.
Chats, we read your chats and it has been enlightening, sir. We thought, let us invite you, sir.
Sir, there is a question in the chat box about the age group where we can use it. Any special?
No, I think, let somebody is facing death. I never forget this patient when I was in CMC Vellore, because there we used to go to the general hospital, the main CMC wing, and sometimes see patients who are very sick, dying of leukemia. This patient, I was a young psychiatrist. I didn't have the devices, and this fellow was going to die. He knew that, and they had sent a referral, ill-equipped psychologically, because I've never faced death in my life. Then both my parents were alive. I've never lost anyone. I just didn't understand. I was so inadequate that finally the patient had to counsel me. So any age, but I think small children, you need to be careful. I don't think that they may have the cognitive processes. So you may have to come down to their level if that is possible. I don't think I may be able to do that. But if somebody has the skill to do that, I think you may have to come down to their age, their level, their thinking, and do it. I would struggle.
Sir, what are the possible issues in transference and counter transference? Because if you're staying,
fantastic question. If I had time, I would have gone into that. Fantastic question. If I start speaking, it will take a long time. So I'll try to be brief. There are several realities when we are speaking to somebody. The truest reality is the here and now. Here and now means I'm sitting with the patient in front of me, and he or she is interacting with me, and I have some feelings about him and he has some feelings about me, and they become apparent during the clinical work, and that is in front of you, the reality. This is the truest evidence of a person's character. Now, this may not emerge in the first session, but after you know this fellow for some time, believe it or not, you are all going through it with your patients whom you're talking to over some length of time. And that is another existential reality. So when you read about existential therapy, especially Yalom's work, you will find that Yalom gives a lot of importance to countertransference and transference. He says that, see, the patient is telling his story. Like I said, the patient has his version of his life. You don't know the truth, but the truth is in front of you. He's interacting with you, isn't it? So you must sensitize yourself to this. This is the real thing. There's a third level at which we are interacting. See, one is what the patient tells you there and then. We call it there and then. Yalom calls it there and then. No, that happened in my life, this happened in my life, and then they distort it and then they present it to you. Here and now, countertransference. There's a third thing that you're trying. As a psychiatrist, you want to make an objective diagnosis, collect the information you need for pharmacotherapy, for your diagnostic purposes. So you are actually talking to them at three levels. And countertransference is very, very important. And I had a countertransference reaction with DK. Dr. Alim, can I take 2 minutes, 3 minutes to tell you the story?
Sure, sir. Most welcome.
Yeah. So what happened as the therapy, it's a long story, but I will just take that another slice and tell you. See, what happened was that about a year into therapy, one day, I had never seen her father. So in a bad mood one day, I remarked, your dad is irresponsible, he's not coming to see me. It came out of my mouth. It is just a bad moment. Usually I wouldn't make such a foolish comment, but I did. She didn't say anything. She left my room. Next day, she came with a long list of complaints. If I tell you the complaints, you will know how I improved my psychotherapy skill. You think no end of yourselves. You think you know everything. You think you're very senior and you can sit on my head and judge my father. Do you know that my father is a gem of a person? Why are you making such negative comments about my father? She went on and on and on. There is no difference between you and a camera. If a camera was sitting, the camera would probably give me more information because I can go and check the pictures. You keep quiet like an idiot. You don't open your mouth and say anything. She exploded and brought me down to earth. And see, she's interacting with me, telling me all the stories, but this is the real feeling she has about me. So that transference reaction emerged. I was heartbroken. My self-esteem hit bottom. I didn't cry, but I was silent after that. For the next 2-3 patients, I was struggling. But then I realized the truth of that. It made me a better doctor. So it made our relationship better, because when the session later, she had the courtesy to come back, and I apologized to her. And I said that, look, it was just a bad moment. I'm human. I make mistakes. And I appreciate your comments. And I was very sincere about it, because actually for me, it was a learning experience. So that was the here and now thing for me, which was very, very real with DK. And so it is with all other patients with whom I have long-term relationships. And I'm sure it is true for you also. Whether you see it or not is another thing.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. Sir, you had sent me a brief summary on WhatsApp. Can you share this final pulse of wisdom with us? This crux of all what we are talking about. You shared it.
I don't know how to access that, doctor. I don't.
Alim, you must have Alim, you must have it. Your WhatsApp is not working.
Yeah, my WhatsApp is working. I want sir to explain it.
If you can somehow put it up, I don't have access to that. Ali was asking me what exactly I want to say.
Yes.
So I prepared 3 or 4 points for him, which was the summary of what I wanted to convey to him. I don't have access to that.
Can I just post it in the chat box, sir?
Yeah. You can copy paste it from your.
Just a moment, sir. The chat box now.
वीडियो में रहता हूँ मैं हो गया पोस्ट कर दिया
हाँ कर दिया
पढ़ लो एक बार जोर से
Yeah, I will read it. Existential therapy explores how an individual can live life well by his or own standards and ideals. Not my standards, his or her own standards and ideals. To do that, first we need to help the patient examine, discover, and build awareness of what his standards and ideals are, and evaluate with the patient the implications of these standards and ideals, and assess with the patient how these standards stack up against universal values and the realities of life. And as this process goes on, the individual develops a better understanding of what life means to him and adapts better. Yeah, so this is what I had summarized for.
So that means we have a lot of resources and time at hand to devote to the patient then.
Not necessary, Dr. Alim said, look, Dr. Alim, this is the reality of our practice. There are doctors like Dr. Yalam, if you see his work, because he writes about it in his book. It's my dream to work like that. It doesn't work like that for any of us in India and in this part of the world here also. The practice is that patients are coming and flowing and flowing and flowing. But there are times when we have time. There are times we have less time. Within the available time, depending on the context, we are flexible. Sometimes we give 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15, 20, half an hour, depending on what we have. And all this happens during that time. There is no, I don't work, if you should read Yalam's book. He has fixed appointments. He sees them for 40 minutes and he thinks over it for 20 minutes and then he updates his notes, and it's a luxury. We don't, I don't think any of us do that kind of work.
Okay.
It all fits into the busy day.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. Amrit, any questions on the chat box?
I think it's we have covered almost all the questions. I think we should hand it over to the chairpersons. You will keep on asking questions. Sir has already spoken for a long time now. We should leave some space for him. We'll call him again. No, you don't want to squeeze him totally. Sir has been over to the chairpersons. Ravish Bhai and
I think it was a very wonderful discussion post presentation. So, sir has been very honest to the core, and definitely it was a very learning experience. As I said in the beginning, it was like I was going through the therapy. Okay, it was such a wonderful session. I'm really thrilled attending this session, and I hand it over to the chairperson, Dr. Tanvi.
Um, Thank you, Dr. Balan Vijay Kumar. Really, it was very interesting and very attention arresting thing. Like the way you went to your case, it was really like it felt as if we are going to. I am seeing this patient. I am doing this thing, and you were very clear in your presentation, and we could learn something. I really don't know much about this, but it was a learning experience for me. I think it is a learning experience for others too. We have really thoroughly enjoyed your presentation, and it is in fact one of the best. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
thank you. Dr. Tufanpati sir.
Thank you very much, Dr. Balan Vijay Kumar. You had spoke like an adept Toastmaster. Thank you very much. And the story, which was a slice of your experience, flowed like a poem. I very much appreciate it. Usually, I raise issues because I think. But what I perceive from your comment and the postings by Dr. Banerjee, Dr. Amit Banerjee, that existentialism is the fact. It depends on us how much we perceive, what we perceive. It is not necessarily related to morbidity. It is a way of understanding one's own life and the world around. You gave a lucid description, Dr. Banerjee gave a lucid description. They differed. They will differ. One has to be open to the existential explanation of things, because it is also changing, starting from Saturday to bread. Many people are coming with many types of explanations. If you read like very much meticulous theoretical students, it is confusing. But I hope if one can have this in his mind, definitely it will help in regular interactions with the person and to deep probe into the things, and it will help where we fail to understand the present. Your presentation has been majestic. No questions, only admiration. Thank you very much, Doctor.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Tufan.
Thank you, sir. Sir, now I go for a formal thank you. So, sir, it was wonderful. You kept to the theme of the musings. That is how we had decided. When we decided in the name, we thought that it would be more of a storytelling, like a narrative, and then there'll be a lot of questions. And you have been absolutely wonderful, beyond expectations, sir. And having 250 people, at this time where we have more physical, conferences. People have had webinar fatigues. People are being admitted in ICU for attending, webinars. That speaks a lot that people are coming on their own. So it's been wonderful, sir. And knowing that you're from CIP, it shames us that we couldn't learn what you learned so much. I and Alim actually learned a lot of things that we could have done better. We would have focused on a lot of other things, given more time to our patients and our academics. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, Ravish Bhai. Ravish Bhai, close friend. You were wonderful in chairing. Tanmani Madam, always smiling, graceful, and she does not interfere too much in whatever is going around. She has been wonderful. Thank you again to Dr. Amit, again a CIP alumni, and I and Alim are actually feeling very proud of having all of you such knowledgeable people with us, and being alumni from the same place. It gives us immense pleasure. Tufan sir, he summed up everything with his 2 lines what he spoke, and that's good enough. And thank you to all our audience who are loyal, who look up to us to give them new speakers, new And I think we have been keeping the standards up throughout. It's been 65 episodes and we have tried to give the best. Thank you, Torrent. Thank you, Backroom Club. And thank you, Alim Siddiqui, for asking a lot of questions. He texts me in my chat box that I'm going to ask this question, you don't interfere. So I tell, okay, घर में बोल नहीं पा रहा है, existence at home is minus, we exist in the webinar. Thank you, everybody. Good night. We'll meet again next Thursday with another episode of Thursday Music.
Thank
Sir,
you,
thank
everybody.
so much again.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
And
Thank you
thanks,
so
Dr.
much.
Balan.
Thank you.
What I perceive, existentialism is not about dealing with persons. It is about one's own interpersonal interaction in day-to-day
Yes.
life. How much you are conscious and how much you perceive, that is important.
Yes. Yes, doctor. Yes. It's about
Theoretical
life.
discussions, yes, theoretical discussions we can have later, but I enjoyed this very much. Every minute. Thank you very much.
Thank you.